Morning.
Reality check day.
Such a decision by the Trump administration is entirely unjustified. This is against the spirit of our two nations' enduring friendship and fundamentally at odds with the benefits that our economic partnership has delivered over more than 70 years.
Australian politicians have expended a lot of oxygen and hyperbole over the years, extolling the virtues and depth of the special friendship we have with the United States. It has justified jumping on board American military adventures, hosting defence facilities and military bases, and more recently an AUKUS alliance which makes us even more dependent on the US for our defence strategy. On the domestic political stage, the US alliance is played out in terms of schoolyard besties. Prime Ministers are judged in terms of whether they are best mates with the President of the day.
I want to make sure that we're a government that can deal with our trading partners effectively, and clearly the Prime Minister hasn't been able to do this. It's obvious that Anthony Albanese and Kevin Rudd have had a shocker. The Prime Minister can't secure a phone call, let alone a meeting with the President of the United States.
If anyone should know about the difficulties of getting foreign leaders on the phone, it's the leader of the Federal Coalition. When last in government, the Coalition was unable to get anyone in the Chinese government to speak to Coalition ministers for several years about all the trade restrictions imposed on Australian products on its watch.
How on earth can an outcome be negotiated if the President won't even take the Prime Minister's call? So it's not just Australians who see the Prime Minister as weak and incompetent, it's our trading partners as well.
You regret not going over. The French and British counterparts both went over and met face to face.
No country has been exempted, not France, not the United Kingdom.
There has been an attempt to set Albanese up to fail on something that he was most unlikely to succeed in.
The lesson from the first Trump tariffs is that exemptions to anybody are counterproductive. They don't work for the American people.
The business community is anxious about what has happened, but understanding of what the government has faced.
Every reasonable step's been taken, frankly, up until this point. And obviously we should not give up. We should continue to press the case. Business will continue to work very actively with government to press the case. The
reality brought home by today's confirmation that Australia will be subjected to the same 25% steel and aluminium tariffs as the rest of the world is that special friendships don't rate in a time when the current US President is overturning the US order. This is a story that is much more significant than tariffs and which should cause a shift in our domestic political debate.
We shouldn't delude ourselves that America regards us as special. Poland, France, the UK, Israel above all, see themselves as special. We delude ourselves if we think that Australia's got a special relationship with the US. And Trump is simply confirming we don't count for that much at all, and we better adjust to that reality.
Much of the commentary about the conundrums of the Trump administration have centred on how countries and leaders should handle the personality of Donald Trump. The issue Australia also confronts now is the bigger one, that the world has changed and we need a new modus operandi.
I think a more subtle and guileful language about protecting and promoting distinctive Australian interests, particularly in this part of the world, is what's required. We need to be able to differentiate where our interests sort of align and where they diverge.
Australia has grown very lazy, and the partnership with America has become the biggest part of our international character. And we need to reduce that and become more nimble and a more powerful diplomatic presence as we're entitled to, given our economic strength.
BlueScope, one of the companies most affected, today pointed out that it has been investing in the US for over 30 years, has approximately $5 billion invested across 16 US states and employs more than 4,000 American steelworkers.
I think the bigger risk is that we will see other affected countries, if they can't access the US market in the same way that they would like to, they will look for other markets. And if the Australian market is there, there's a risk that we could see increased pressure from imports coming to Australia as a result.
While the federal opposition is using the decision to renew its attack lines about the Prime Minister being weak, The decision could also be seen to play into the hands of the government and its arguments about the need for us to be self-sufficient in industries like steel. But the signal on an economic issue like tariffs inevitably raises questions for analysts about broader strategic and defence issues.
This America is not going to go back to normal. It's not going to go back to liberal internationalism. It's not going to be the America we recognised providing leadership in the Cold War, proud of its alliance system. We should recognise that this America is very brutal, very hard-headed and very self-interested. And we should be the most courted girl on the block.
In particular, the changed rhetoric from the Trump administration is escalating the calls for a more clear-eyed view of the AUKUS agreement.
We may well be faced with some difficult choices, for example, on the AUKUS agreement. It will have to be the United States that walks away from it before Australia does. So there's all sorts of talk now about Plan B and what that might look like and whether Australia should go back to the French option. But I think it'll have to be Washington deserting AUKUS before Australia will.
I don't think we should have retaliatory tariffs directed at America, but I do think it's an opportunity to begin to explore with the French the alternative to AUKUS, because it's now accepted wisdom that in the early 2030s America won't be building enough Virginia-class subs to peel off 3 to 5 and give them to us. And I think given that inevitability, we're entitled at this moment to say we're going to reopen discussions with the French about getting lethal and affordable submarines that would make this country untouchable. The Turnbull deal had a lot going for it. AUKUS is just too complex and it's fading fast.